Welcome to the Mindcraft Podcast. I have here with me today Mr. Greg Kettner of Work Happy. Greg and I have gotten to become good friends through a group we're in, a mastermind group, and he is going to wow us with his conversation on the state of employees, in the wake of the pandemic. So thank you for being here with us, Greg.
Not a problem. Thanks, Kimberly. I appreciate it and looking forward to our conversation.
Excellent. So maybe, Greg, maybe you can start us off so we're all on the same page, so to speak, with filling in listeners about, so I know you're very, very aware. You're out there in the world talking about it. In your opinion, what is going on currently in the business world across the United States?
People are struggling to find joy and meaning at work. I think, COVID came along, and whether we were at home or hybrid or back and forth, we've just really forgotten how to communicate, right? I mean, now it's great because we're on video talking to each other. I'm in Washington State and you're out on the East Coast. So that's great, but people are just not happy. We're overworked. We're overstressed. We're asked to do more with less. People have left, as you know. I mean, I think a lot of the workforce who was a year or two away from retiring took that package or whatnot, and it's just we're left to do more, and the numbers keep on going on, and people are just to the breaking point. And 68% of people currently are looking for a new position for the different company.
Right. Right.
And it's just people are tapped out. And so my mission and my task is to help 1 million people work happy at work. And that's a big number, but if you and I have a conversation and 50 people listen to the podcast and they pass it on to 50 people, we're going to get there. But there are things that we need to do to alleviate the stress so that we can be more productive, we can enjoy our work, we have better mental health, and we just have more balance. I talk to a lot of people, either work is going really well, or family's going really well, or social's going really well, but we got to get the wheel rolling again.
Yeah, and I know I'm personally very grateful for the work you're doing too, Greg. And I said this to people because Greg and I do sort of similar things. I almost
Yeah.
think of it like the importance of having a good mattress. Because think of all the time you spend seriously, right? You spend all this time sleeping. In the workplace, we spend so much time in the workplace. Shouldn't it be comfortable, enjoyable, relaxing, rejuvenating? You know what I mean? Like, and it's yet there's such a I don't know, such a thing with not talking about our personal lives at work. And I know that you're really an advocate with. Maybe I would almost say be bold, Greg, and say redefining professionalism. So maybe tell us maybe a little bit what you do as far as normalizing mental health discussion in the workplace.
Yeah, well, I truly believe we all deserve to love our work again. We all did. Remember that first day of the job? You got out of college and you got a big interview and like, I'm going to make $40,000. I'm going to be at the top of the world. We love going into work, right? Or you start a new job. I remember I got a job in Vancouver, British Columbia, working for the Vancouver Canucks, which is the National Hockey League. Always wanted to play hockey, but I didn't have the talent or the skill or the willpower. And so I finally got a job working for the Vancouver Canucks. I was doing sales and service. Absolutely loved it. First day I walked in with 24 Krispy Kreme donuts. Everybody loved me. And for the most part, that job was great. I still have a ton of friends from that job because the motto was we work hard and we play hard. And we
Right.
were friends. And everybody deserves to have it again, but we're not doing that. Everybody's too selfish. It's me, 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 which I get. And I even preach that. To be happy, to serve other people, and to talk about mental health, and to be a good citizen, I have to take care of myself, right? If I'm not taking care of
Right.
myself
Right. Right.
with meditation, learning, reading, breathing, exercise, whatever it is, how am I going to help, first of all, my family, my wife and my daughter? How am I going to help my friends that I serve? How am I going to help my colleagues like you, right? If I'm in a grumpy mood and we get off this interview, I'm like, oh, life sucks. What kind of interview is that going to be, right? So I have to take care of myself first. But when we serve other people, there's so much meaning, there's so much purpose, and there's so much happiness. And I think we've just lost our way, and we don't treat other people like we treat ourselves, and it's showing.
I can't agree with you more, Greg, and it makes me think of my dear friend Oprah. You know, she's not really aware of it, but she talks a lot about our number one job being to keep ourselves filled up, right? Because there's good selfish and bad selfish. You know, just having a presentation and saying the heck with you guys, I'm going to go do my thing is bad, but to keep
Yeah,
ourselves when we keep ourselves full, like you're saying, doing the medication, the counseling, eating well, exercising, then we have everything to give the world when we're filled up. Like somebody's burnt out, it's not so much fun to be around, right? So
yeah.
I think like so. Let me just ask you this: how what are you doing to convey that? Because I know you just had a big gig out in Reno, and you've had some other ones since. What are you doing to help support this effort with companies?
You know, my good friend, speaker friend Jeff McLaughlin, one time I got off stage and he goes, "You know what, Kettner?" He goes, "You're a can opener. You're a human can opener." And that is my job, Kimberly. From the stage, whether I'm speaking or doing training or, coaching one on one, is to get a conversation going and let people know I go through rough days. Not every day is a work happy day for Greg Kettner.
Right, right.
Right, there are days that go sideways. Even yesterday, something came up and I was frustrated with my software and I shut it down in the afternoon because I was in no condition to make other people happy. But when we take time and we put people before profits, it's absolutely amazing. Work happy people who work happy are 18% more productive. Stock prices in companies who have a work happy culture where people play, have fun, get along, the
Right.
stock prices go up. It's just there's overwhelming evidence. And what I teach and what I do is not rocket science, and it doesn't cost a ton of money. I was just reading a report out since COVID, and they're saying now that workers would rather than get a $10,000 raise at their current job, would rather feel like they have meaning, that
Right.
their voice is heard, and that management cares about them. How
100%.
much money? How much money does it cost to walk by somebody's desk or call them up and say, "Hey, hope you're having a great day. I'm cheering you on."
Oh my God. And that Greg, and I know because I know Greg is hysterical actually, so his inner comic. I know also too, Greg, that you're a big fan of playing.
Yeah,
It's somehow like people think we like transition to adulthood, whatever that even means, and therefore there will be no more fun. We got to be
yeah.
serious and we have to be professional, right? But bringing play into the workplace. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, it's just so important. Our minds are wound for human connection.
Right.
We're wound for laughter, and the research on laughter. I mean, people will tell you that laughter is the best medicine, and I guess that's true unless you have diarrhea. I wouldn't I wouldn't suggest it. But when we laugh, endorphins are released into our blood system, right? And those are the
Right.
happy, feel good drugs that don't
Right.
cost anything. And if we can laugh at a situation, and I suggest to people all the time, start your day with laughter. Put it in your calendar. For me, if stuff doesn't get in my calendar, it goes to the side. But I was just, and I wrote a post about it this morning. I found a guy on YouTube yesterday, Don McMillan. Very corporate, very clean, very funny, but he was doing math with different kind of companies, and he was coming up with all this funny stuff. And for 5 minutes, I'm like, I'm in a good mood. I'm ready to go.
I saw that. I think I saw that.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Actually, to make
silly.
math
Yeah.
enjoyable for
One
many
of the
people.
funnest. Yeah, one of the funniest training sessions I've had, and most memorable from what the people said afterwards. It was a group of 30 principals here in our local town in Walla Walla, Washington, and we were talking about how to use humor in the workplace. and they're in schools, right? So you have to be very, very PC, very neutral, everything. And people are like, well, then nothing's funny. And I said, all right, well, let's start with a dad joke. And for 45 minutes, we told dad jokes. And that's all we did. It went off the rails. I didn't do any teaching or anything. But everybody came up to me and said, that was the best training session we've ever had. And the dad jokes were horrible. But the best dad joke was, what did the right eye say to the left eye?
Oh, I
Between
feel
us,
like I know
something
this
smells.
one. What?
Between us,
Something
something
smells in
smells.
between us? Oh my God.
Right?
The reason why I think dad jokes are so hysterical is because they are so bad.
Yeah. Yeah. They always get a groan, but we remember them.
We do
And
remember
just
them
that
because they're
little bit
so
of laughter, well,
corny.
it connects us. We're humans. We're wired for connection. And we've gotten away
Right.
from that. And we're on our damn phones way too much. And everybody's like, oh, social media. That is not social at all. I mean, every
No.
time, and I'm just as guilty as everybody else, right? But when I make a post, I'll go back a couple hours later. How many likes did I get? How many people commented?
I do
It's
too. I
silly,
do too.
right? But what if you picked up your phone once a day and called a friend you haven't talked to in 3 years? That's social.
You and I are
And
on
who
the
cares?
same. You are preaching to the choir because I'm out with Giovanni, the golden retriever, every day in the woods. Every day,
Yeah,
at least once. And I make a few reels and then it's off, and he and I are just doing positive affirmations,
yeah,
sending the good vibes and hiking. And it's ironic, Greg, because the social media thing, it's such an irony. It is an irony because it's supposed to connect us, but it's an illusion of connection. It's a connected disconnection or a
absolutely.
disconnected connection. I'm not sure which one.
We need to be unsocial. We need to have more relationships. I mean, and and this isn't a scientific experiment. There's no real data behind it. But during COVID, I remember specifically. I'm a very obviously outgoing individual, and it's probably about a month or two in. Right, we always had to stand 6 feet from each other.
Yes,
So
yes.
I called my buddy, and I'm looking at his house right now across the street. Skip. He runs a local jewelry shop here in town. I called him up. I'm like, it was January. I'm like, dude, I need a bourbon. Like, this is nuts. I've been in my house for 2 months. So we both dressed up. I got a hockey stick, which is about 4 or 5 feet long, and I poured a glass of bourbon. Walked across the street. It was mid-January. It was snowing, and we stood out in the driveway. And for 20 minutes, we sipped on bourbon, and it was
I
the most.
love it.
I couldn't even tell you what the conversation was, but we were actually 5 feet from each other, and whatnot. And I said, we need to do this again. It was a Thursday night. I said, all right, next Thursday, you and me and invite one more person. So the next Thursday, we had 4 people. Our paper came out and did a story on us. At one point, we had 32 people in our driveway.
Wow.
Driveway drinks every Thursday night. We got to know our whole neighborhood. And people would be
I
invited.
love that
People would drive
story.
by. People would drive by and like, what are you doing? We're like, we're having a drink and a conversation. And the whole thing was just, we found out so much about our neighbors and our neighborhood and the history. One guy's a farmer, one guy works at the newspaper, another guy's a contractor, another guy's an engineer. And we had all these amazing conversations. And since then, we've had two. And I still see all my neighbors like, oh, we got to get together, we got to get together. But if we don't take that time and be specific, and we don't
And
have to be social
prioritize.
with, yeah, prioritize who you want to be social with. Who cares about somebody who graduated you graduated in high school and you never hear from them? And here's the other thing about the illusion of social media. Nobody puts on social media their worst day. It's
Of
always their
course
best
not.
day. It's them going on vacation or their anniversary, right? I love all the anniversaries like, you've been the love of my life, and there's this whole paragraph, and then you see them fighting at the gym the next day. But on social media, it's wherever you want it to be, right? And
Right,
so
right, right.
I'm trying to be more authentic, and I'm trying to tell other people, be who you are. Let's connect. Let's have deep,
100%.
meaningful relationships. And when we ask somebody, how are you doing? Let's ask that question again. because we never know what somebody else is going through, right? And so if I
Right.
see a friend and I'm like, hey, how's it going? Oh, pretty good. What does that mean?
Well, I think, don't we all play this game though?
Yeah,
How are you?
yeah,
Fine. It's like this monotone like a bot message. When
yeah,
somebody might want to say, "I'm really freaking anxious. Thanks for all. Thanks for asking."
right? And if we take that step and say that, it drops that wall. And so when I ask somebody,
Right.
hey, how's it going? Oh, pretty good. I'll ask the question again. How are you really doing? I got 5 minutes. Let's go for a coffee. Catch me up on your
Right.
world.
Right. Right.
And then
Right.
they're like, oh, okay. And I'm like, because I could use a conversation. I said, you know what? Some days I just get overwhelmed, and some days I have anxiety, and I'm just like, and then, and then people just start talking. And
Right.
I'm not a counselor. I'm not a therapist, but I share that, I go to my therapist once a month, whether I need to or not.
Right. Just like a tune-up.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
like that you said that. Go ahead, Greg. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, right? I mean, this is the most expensive real estate we have in the world, the 6 inches
Totally.
between our ears. And, if we have a tummy ache, we call the doctor. If we have a toothache, we go to the dentist. If you're struggling with your emotions or your insides, go talk to a therapist. They know what to do.
Right, 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 right. But yet,
Yeah.
and I do think it's gotten better, Greg. I mean, since every decade that goes by seems like it's a little better. I think there's still a way to go, and
Yeah.
especially for men folk, I think it still has a way to go. Um, but I like that you said just now, I'm not a therapist. I'm not because really, for regular workplace talk or drinking in the driveway talk, do we need to be? It's just human beings saying, you know what? I dropped off my kid to college and I'm really so excited for her, but I'm really sad. Like,
Yeah.
things have changed or whatever it is. I don't think you need to be a therapist to show that you care and listen.
No. Absolutely, right? And when we have those conversations and we feel like we can share with somebody else, like, yeah, your daughter going off to college, right? If you're talking to somebody and they've already had kids go off to college, they're going to be like, "Oh yeah, I totally know what you're going through. Here's what I did. Here's what got me
Yeah,
through."
no,
Right?
exactly.
And you're relying on each other. And then if something is serious, I mean, because mental health is a serious topic and subject, right? So if you are bipolar, or say you have thoughts of suicide, or you have had childhood trauma, that is real, and you can go and get help, whether it's therapy or medicine. But there are people who study this, who go to college, who've talked to 1,000 people, right?
Right.
If I'm struggling communication in my marriage, why wouldn't I go and talk to somebody who talks to hundreds of couples and says, well, have you thought of
Makes
this? Have you
great
tried
sense
this?
to me.
Right? I would do the same thing if, you know,
It
my
makes
tooth was
great sense
hurting.
to me, Greg. And I think what you said,
Yeah.
though, earlier, I go with that. I'm not a therapist thing, but just think about how just regular people to people connection, like the drinking in the driveway thing during the
Yeah.
pandemic, and all the magic you're working in the workplace, that might be somebody's gateway to going and getting help. If you come in
Absolutely.
there and normalize talking about being depressed or normalize being a professional person and you can say you're anxious at work, just like you'd say, you know what, I really have to leave. Something didn't agree with me with the lunch I ate. No one would question that, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that you're out there normalizing this for so many people, like when you did and so on, like a million people that you want to
Yeah.
reach, right? If those you're creating gateways because if that
Yeah.
one person says maybe I can talk to my colleague or boss, and then it leads to a therapist, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. I talk on stage and I'm open and empathetic. And if people want to make fun of me for going to therapy, but I tell people I go to therapy. I don't know everything. I'm not a perfect individual. Yeah, I talk about work happy. Not every day is happy. I need to go get a tune up once in a while. And I say to him, I go, look, if a skinny John Goodman can go get therapy, and I don't know if it's a skinny John Goodman or a fat Prince Harry. I'm kind of right in between. Um, but I
I
tell
think
people,
just
right? And people will come up to me and they will say, I'm going to therapy. I had one guy, I was talking to an organization, mostly men, managers, and this guy brought me in to talk about how do we talk about mental health and how do we work happy. And halfway through my talk, I saw him standing at the back of the room, and he had tears in his eyes. He was wiping away tears in his eyes. And so I went up to him afterwards and talked to him. I said, hey, everything okay? What did I say that? He goes, you know what? I brought you in here to help my staff be better and to have them talk about mental health and go to therapy. He goes, I'm going to go to therapy. He said, when I was 16, I lost my brother to suicide, and back then nobody talked about it. And I haven't thought about that in 10, 15 years. He goes, but I'm going to go because if you can go, I can go. And that's all it takes, Kimberly. If we let people know that we're not perfect, we have struggles, we go get help, then other people go, oh, well, if Greg can go, I can go. And that's what I love about it. I've had so many people come up to me saying, thank you for letting us know that you go to therapy. I'm in therapy now, and it works like magic.
That to me, Greg, I just think it's music to my ears. I'm just thinking being you, and I think that also is helpful for women, obviously, but I think it's like the sauce on the sundae that you're a
Yeah.
professional man out there making normalizing it. It elevates it just because of the societal crap that is fed to men.
Yeah.
I think that it's just so you're literally saving lives, and the thing is, you've had those wonderful. I know you've had a lot of feedback because you've shared, and it just gives me chills up my back. And just think about all those people who you'll never know that you saved their lives. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like you touch them, and they're out in the world doing well because
Yeah.
you told them, I'm a successful professional man, and I go to therapy.
Yeah. And it's not so much about me, it's more about the message, I think. It's great that people can see. And sometimes, sometimes I'll cry on stage. And it's not as often as it used to be. But when I talk about my stepdaughter losing her dad, I will break down. And I'm okay with it now. I turn around, I take a couple of deep breaths. I'm like, I didn't think this was going to happen today. And I go back and I do it. And I had one kid come up to me and he goes, I've never seen a dude cry before. He was probably 22.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
And I was
just
like, awesome.
powerful,
Yeah. So
powerful.
it's being there and stepping out and I just want to be the guide to help other organizations and help people. How do we work happy? How do we talk about mental health? Because I had to figure it out. And now that I figured it out, and like you said, the message is so powerful when we do reach out, especially as guys. I was I was speaking back in November, I was out in Michigan, and I was the closing keynote, and this gentleman we had met earlier before at this conference, and we've been friends and whatnot, and good guy, coach, and he does all sorts of really good things. And so after the conference, we were having a burger and a beer, and he's like, "Hey, thanks again for your message, Greg." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "You always tell people to reach out. Reach out if you're struggling. Talk to your doctor, your family, your friends, HR, whatever." And he goes, "It works." And I says, "Oh, tell me more." And he got a little bit quiet, and I'm like, "Oh boy, here we go." And he said, 6 weeks ago, Greg, I had a plan to end my life.
Man.
He said, I left work, I got in my truck, I went to the gun shop, I bought a gun, I got back into my truck, and I was driving to my favorite fishing hole where I was going to end my life. And he said, the farther I kept on driving, this message kept on popping in my head. Greg says, reach out, reach out, reach out. He says, I couldn't take it anymore. He goes, I pulled the truck over, and he said, I called my sister, we talked for an hour. She came and got me. I'm in therapy, and because I reached out, I'm here. And that's the biggest compliment I could ever get, right? When somebody actually
Yeah.
reached out, right? Because he was struggling. He didn't know what to do. But when he reached out to his sister, which got him to a safe place. And then from there, he went from talking to his sister to going to therapy and getting the help that he needs. And now he's a keynote speaker, and he's sharing his story. And I'm like,
That's awesome.
how cool is that, right? That's part of the 1 million. It's one
That's
dude who's
part
going
of
to
the
affect.
million. Yes.
right?
Greg, it comes right back to that we're wired. It's like we need it like we breathe oxygen, the connection
Yep,
thing. And whether somebody's introverted or extroverted, they charge their batteries. No matter how introverted you might be, you
yeah,
still need people, right? We're not
absolutely.
wired to be islands.
Yeah, and you may need people, and that's a perfect example. I'm the extrovert. My wife Becky's an introvert, and when I want to get charged, I go out and I go out to a networking event.
Right.
Becky will come home, read a book, and either talk to me or Rachel or call a friend. Right? She still needs the connection, but
Absolutely.
her need for connection is more narrow and more focused.
Right, right,
Right? I
right.
want to talk to my girlfriend about this one situation. Whereas if I'm having a crappy day, I'm like, I'll go in a group of people and talk to 15 people. So,
That's
but,
also me. Yeah.
yeah, but we both need the human connection, and how we get it isn't doesn't matter. It's that we're getting it, and being
As
on our
long as
phones,
we
and
feel linked to other people,
yeah,
not
that's
alone.
when we
That's
get
the
into
main thing.
crisis, right?
Right.
Right? You've been in the situation too. Something comes up, and all of a sudden you're scrambling like, "Oh my God, the end of the world!" And then we get on a master class, and we go into our little chat rooms, three or four of us, and we find out either we're all going through the same thing, or one of us has gone through it before, right? And we have a discussion, and we talk about it like normal adults, and we feel so much better by the end of the call because we're there
Yeah,
for
oh
each
my
other.
God, Greg, it's so true because it's that not feeling alone thing.
Yeah,
That's what the connection immediately real pulls you back in the room. Like you're not, and that's a Zoom. That's not even like connection. It's virtual, and I
yeah,
still feel like, wow, his business is not moving much, or her, and this just happened, and they just lost it. Whatever. You're right, and you
yeah,
feel like, oh my God, I'm not the only one.
yeah.
And it feels
It's amazing.
so secure, or I don't know. It's a good feeling to not be alone.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, like we're connecting now via Zoom or whatever app we're on, which is great. But the best connection is human connection. When you get a hug or a high five. I remember halfway through COVID, I was speaking at a conference down in Las Vegas's sports conference, and I had met this guy, Jason Wange, on LinkedIn. He's another very positive guy in sales, and we just somehow connected and we became friends. And about 3 or 4 days before I flew down to Vegas, he's like, "Hey, I just saw that you're speaking at this conference in Vegas." And I said, "Yeah, no, I'm pretty pumped about it." He goes, "I'm going to be there." I'm like, "No way." And so he was like the first LinkedIn COVID friend that I'd met that I was actually going to see, and we saw each other, and literally we're like in grade 5, two dudes running towards each other, and it was the best hug ever. It was so cool. We're just like,
Oh my
oh my
God.
God, like you're a real person, and I mean stuff like that you can't replicate that with a phone or an app or
No, no, no. And I tell you, Greg, I know you're in agreement already, but it seems really clear across I'm sure the globe,
yep,
we really need to get back to basics.
yep,
Like I'm like the adult version of playing in the sandbox, touching and holding and hugging and
yep,
sharing shovels and buckets and playing and,
and
you
throwing
know what I
cat poop
mean?
at each
Yeah,
other.
or that. So this is excellent, Greg. I think this is probably a good place because to kind of wind it up with maybe I'm thinking because now Greg again is his business is work happy. He's working magic with all the things we're talking about, connection and validation
Yeah,
and mental health and all the things. I'm wondering, Greg, if you have the some tips for leaders who may be listening too, because they're also, maybe the ones to come have you speak for them. What tips might you offer anybody who's in either a big L or a little L leader as
yeah.
far as the work you do?
I think the biggest thing is just get back to basics, Kimberly. Remember who we are. We're humans. We need connection. Um, Big, huge fan of the golden rule. And I
Yes.
think the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have them do
Yes.
unto you. I want to have the platinum rule is do unto others is what they would have due unto you. And I remember this, I was talking to a client, and he was telling me that the company that he used to work at, every Christmas, every employee, no matter the level, high, low, everybody got a $2,500 bonus and a turkey for Christmas. And one of the employees went to whoever was handing out the turkey and said, "We're so thankful, but we're vegetarians." And they said, "Here's a $75 gift certificate for the grocery store." So they were treating them the way they want to be treated, but this family was vegetarian. He's like, "Sure, no problem. Here's a gift certificate. Buy, knock your head out or your heart out with the vegetables," right? So it's taking into people account. But if you didn't have a conversation, if you're not talking to your employees, if all you're doing is sending emails and updates and whatnot, you need to walk around and reconnect with the people that are working for you. We need to put people before profits. We need to give them the tools to help them take care of themselves. We need to give them tools, and we need to be a leader in talking about mental health, right? Because if I'm a VP and there's some new kid, he's 2 weeks in and he's got anxiety, he's not going to run up to me like, "Oh, I'm struggling with my anxiety again," right? He just got a job, he wants to keep it. But if the leader at a team meeting is saying, "You know what? Mental health is very important to the company. It's very important to me. It's very important to this team. And I want to let you know, guys, know that back in college, I struggled when it came to taking exams. I had a lot of anxiety back in college. And my parents got me into therapy, 3, 4 sessions. I learned what I needed to learn. I was able to take the test. And now when anxiety comes up, I go back. And here's what I do." And if the leader says that in a team meeting without pointing to anybody else, he's telling his story. Everyone in that room is going to feel more comfortable in going, "Hey, can we go for a coffee? I had a question about what you said." And then you can say, right? Then it's one-on-one. Then you're not singling people out. So I think be human, take care of your people, and take care of yourself so that you can take care of your people.
I love that. And people before profits.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. You can see why I'm so fond of Greg. Everyone,
Well, thank you, Kimberly. You're flattering me, but I
he's
appreciate it.
super, you're super funny. Greg and I do a lot of the same thing, kind of very similar
Yeah.
missions, and one person at a time, just connecting, validating the whole thing, right? So now,
Yeah.
Greg's information will be right beneath here in the blurb. So if you want to reach out and contact him, but Greg, for right now, do you want to say what your website is so they can all hear you?
Yeah, it's just gregkettner.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm the only Greg Kettner that I know about, or any of the social media. But if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to share what I do and tips and tricks. And if you're hosting a conference and want someone to come out and talk, either how do we work happy, or how do we talk about mental health in the workplace, let's have a conversation.
100%, and I'll have the information right below in case you forgot any of that. So I just want to send some big gratitude towards you, Greg, for using your life minutes in this way, because there is no bigger compliment, right? So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you very much, Kimberly, and I'm so glad that we've gotten to know each other, and we've had these conversations when we've struggled with work or issues with our computers. But I appreciate you and what you're doing, and I believe we're better together.
100%.